Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we love having entrepreneurs come on. In this case, they're talking about leveraging technology to take back control of your user data. So we're talking user privacy with Tiki. We're joined by their co-founder and CEO, Mike Audi, and also their co-founder and user champion, Shane Faria. And so how are you two guys doing?
Pretty great. Thanks for having us.
Doing very well. Thank you.
So let's talk about Tiki in terms of data, because all of this revolves around user data and privacy and taking back control of our information. And so give us a little bit of history in terms of what led you to start Tiki.
Well, if you look back at all of the problems that we're facing on the internet and a lot of just society in general, it all stems from our data, and specifically the use of our data in ways that we did not intend, want, or sign up for. Whether that be, manipulative practices, exploitation, ransomware, lack of privacy, echo chambers, they're all rooted in the same problems and causes. And ultimately, it all comes down to somebody else deciding what should happen with your data and not you. But it's your data, right? Like, that's the confusing part. Somewhere along the way, they're like, it's yours, but we decide what happens to it, right? Like, it'd be, I use this example all the time. It'd be like if Ford just took your car and sold it and kept all the money, you'd be like, what's going on here, right? Like, that was mine. You can't just take it and decide to drive it and then sell it, right? But somewhere along the way, we gave up all our property rights associated with our data. And we believe, well, if they keep saying it's our data, it's your data, we're deciding what to do with it, why can't we just take back control of it? Why can't we give people back ownership of their data and re-envision the whole way data works, right? From top to bottom. You as the owner should be able to see your data, control who uses it, and if you want to share it, you should get paid for it, right? Very simple premises, all standard things that come with ownership. And so we built Tiki as a company to make that possible. It's all 100% anonymous. It's all end-to-end encrypted. It's all safe and secure. And it actually protects both users and buyers, because ultimately businesses also don't want to be liable and responsible for your data, right? They just want an answer to a question. They're just like, I'm trying to provide a better product and service to you, right? I don't want to be responsible for all of the repercussions that come from the data. So we're out here trying to build a new marketplace effectively, where people choose what happens to their data and businesses are able to use that data to provide better services.
Talk about how Tiki works, because it's pretty easy in terms of user friendliness. You can decide, as you mentioned, do I want to not share my information, or do I want to share it and have the opportunity to be paid for that and monetize it? So there's a swipe feature there, but talk about how Tiki works.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. You install the app, you can link any existing accounts you have. So you can link your, IG account or TikTok or Twitter, or your email is where we actually started, because your email is this treasure trove of data that you don't even think about or know about. And so when you link an account, it looks a lot kind of like Tinder for your data. It pops up these cards and it lets you swipe left and right to make choices in a couple seconds easily, and in words that we all understand, right? It says, Facebook is tracking your face. Do you want to turn this off? Here's what they do with it, right? They're using this to auto tag you in pictures. It's also been used in court cases. You should be aware of these 5 things. And if you swipe left, we'll turn it off for you. Or you can swipe right and keep it on, right? And it just works like that. Just swipe left, swipe right, choose what you want out of your experience on the internet. We're not saying get off of all these platforms, but rather, why not configure them to your expectation, right? Like, let's fix this problem where everybody's got misset expectations. We go in expecting these companies to do one thing, and then they do something else, and we're like, wait, that's not what I signed up for. And they're like, whoopsies, right? Like, instead just make conscious choices. And so we're out here making it really easy. Just link your account, swipe left, swipe right. You can choose to sell your data if you want to make some money, or you can choose just to simply turn off all the tracking everybody has on you. Well, it's up to you. It's your data.
I know that businesses are making, millions and probably billions of dollars of having access to this data because, like you said, it allows them to customize the experience and the products that they're putting in front of you. When you talk about expectations, what is a basic range or what's realistic? When you talk about sharing your data and your information and being paid for that, are we talking like pennies or dollars or more dollars? Like what is a range? How much money can someone actually, make by sharing their data?
Sure. I mean, it depends on you and where you live in the world and what data you want to share, right? But, the average person in the United States' data is worth over $1,000 a year. Currently being traded on the market. Now, you're not seeing any of that, and it's our job to get you as much of that back as possible. But it's worth in the thousands for a user, and it's just increasing every year, right? We're at the early stages of data, and the grand scheme of what's going to happen with data, we're very early, right? The metaverse, quantum computing, Neuralink, genetic engineering, we're talking about things that are going to fundamentally shape humanity, all based in data. And I don't know about you, I don't want to live in a world where all of that's consolidated in 5 people's hands, right? Like that's a scary future. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, when you talk about eventually on the science side, having like a digital twin and the amount of data that you're talking about there, like that's huge. So to your point, we're probably just on that very early stage of where all this is headed. And so why not take control now?
Yeah.
Shane, what would you add on your end in terms of what you would want everyone to know about Tiki and the user experience and what this means for us as the public?
Well, I would say that, the general consensus around data is that people are more aware of the problems than ever before. There's so many different things happening. Mike always mentions that one of the reasons why he felt the time was right to get this project going was his dad asking him, hey, what's this Signal app everyone's talking about? And his dad is pretty far removed from that type of world. So he knew that we're moving towards a world where people were hyper aware of what is going on. Now, coupled with that awareness, the sort of status quo is sort of a shoulder shrug. Like, yeah, I know this is happening, but what are we going to do about it? So people often feel powerless in that regard. And I was reading a study that came out of the Pew Research Center from 2019, and it mentioned that around 80% of people would want like government overreach to make data more secure. But then when presented with another option, which was if there were an opportunity to have better control of your data, would you prefer that over government control? And 55% versus 44% in 2019 said, we'd rather have better opportunities to have control. And so this is an opportunity for users to have control. Fundamentally, that is what Tiki is based around. If you give informed choice to users, then they can dictate how they use the internet, right? So that's really what it comes down to, is educating the population about, hey, this is what is going on, and then giving them the power to make a choice. That's what fuels this whole operation.
Yeah. And to your point too, just knowing that we're talking about like around $1,000, that's a big difference than like $10, right? And so when you start putting real dollars to that in terms of what that data means, that also, I think, starts to reshape that, expectation, that formula of, okay, do I want to lock it down completely? Or, hey, I might be willing, but now instead of giving it up for free, now I can monetize that to real dollars. That's a good opportunity that I don't mind sharing. So to your point, empowering individuals to make the right choice is a big, powerful opportunity. How, when you talk about putting all this together, because obviously you're making it very user friendly, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of technology, a lot of coding, a lot of, interface, a lot of stuff that has to go on. Talk about you as entrepreneurs building this business out, and even now allowing people to invest in it as a business investment opportunity.
Sure. Yes, the technology is pretty crazy and complicated to make it happen. For mostly because we wanted to build something that is truly anonymous and decentralized, right? Because ultimately it's your data. As we've seen, if you have centralized data anywhere, the government comes knocking pretty quickly with subpoenas. So you got to be cautious when you're consolidating people's data, or don't consolidate people's data. You're just creating another version of the same problem, right? So we had to build a decentralized system that protected users and buyers, all while facilitating people to share just what they wanted with people, right? So yes, the technology is pretty complicated. The core of it is we actually turn everybody's data into NFTs, which I know is a bit of a buzzword right now. That is really how the technology works. We had to invent a new type of blockchain to make billions and billions of NFTs very cheap and effectively. And, it's pretty cool how that all happens. But honestly, when you talk about building the business, this is a business that is more like a movement or a revolution than even technology. We could write all the coolest code in the world and it would mean nothing unless people actually said, hey, I want to install this app and do something about it, right? So the biggest thing here is to get first users signed up, people signed up and saying, hey, I actually believe in this. Yes, I want to do this. Not saying you got to take hours out of your day, just install an app, right? It's not a complicated thing, but you got to do something. You have to care about the problem. And then ultimately you have to want to share some data with businesses. And if you do share that data with businesses, more businesses will spend more money, and then more users will sign up because they'll get more money, and round the flywheel goes, right? So this is really, a marketplace type of play. It's not about, short-term revenue gains. It's not about technology. It's all about adoption. Can you get a lot of users? Then can you get a lot of businesses? And then can you get more users?
Talk about being based in Tennessee and Nashville, Middle Tennessee area, but talk about being based in Tennessee and what that means for you all.
I'll leave that with you, Shane.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it was one of those things. So I'm from Boston. When I say that, I mean, I'm from a suburb close enough to Boston that I might as well say Boston. And Mike is from upstate New York. So our roots are in the Northeast. Mike has spent a lot of time in central Massachusetts in a city called Worcester. This whole company was started remotely in late 2020. I didn't even meet Mike until we were on a plane to Nashville. That was the first face-to-face interaction that we had. So we actually raised $400,000 through a platform called Start Engine, which is like an equity crowdfunding raise. So with that money, we saw an opportunity, let's actually make this an in-person gig, right? I mean, it's a beautiful thing that this happened during COVID. It's one of the benefits of COVID, if you could actually say that, was us meeting each other and forming this thing. But we had to make a decision where to go. And staying in Boston was certainly an option because obviously there's MIT and Harvard and the tech scene there is booming. But it was just a gut feeling where it was like, hey, we would just be another fish in the pond. So we had a few options in mind of where we might want to go. On the short list was Nashville. We talked about Austin. We briefly talked about Miami, Florida. There are a few places that we were interested in, but at least for me personally, and I don't know if there's anything really beyond like a gut feeling. I had been to Nashville a few times, and so my experiences here had always been positive. And I know, Nashville is not Silicon Valley, but it's also not, Dubuque, Iowa. That's my default, like random Midwest city, right? So the tech scene is growing in Nashville. That's definitely part of the equation. Obviously, all the health technology that is in Nashville. We're talking to a lot of people who have connections in hospitals, and health data is super sensitive. And the way that data is delivered is very imperfect right now because of HIPAA laws and things like that. People don't get the correct information at the right time in order to make timely decisions with health data. So that's certainly part of it. But in general, it was sort of, the way that I described it is a leap into faith, right? So it's something that we felt strongly about, something that we wanted to do. And Nashville, in many ways, obviously rooted in the music community, sort of has this ethos of going here to make it, right? You have a dream and you want to follow it. You want to chase that dream. And I think a lot of people think of that like chasing a dream, like you go to LA or something like that. And that's really not my style. I don't know how much it's Mike's style, but just the environment of it, the sort of that Southern hospitality, the attitude of, let's do this thing and try to make it. All of those variables kind of came together. And it seemed like a very easy decision for me and a pretty easy decision for Mike. And we didn't really overthink it. It was about like a week process. We're like, where do we want to go? We decided on Nashville. We booked a plane to come check out the area, check out apartments, check out office space. Then we got office space, we got apartments. And then sure enough, a month later, we were here for real. So yeah.
Nice. What's something that you've learned as entrepreneurs that you would pass along as advice to other entrepreneurs, especially within this kind of tech user privacy space?
Well, usually my default answer is just to go for it. I think a lot of people, especially tech entrepreneurs, get locked into the mindset of keep coding. They're afraid to go out and talk to people, and people who are excited to talk to people very rarely actually get around making the product, right? And so there's this weird balance that you have to strike. But as of late, I'd say, and this ties into why Nashville, doubling down on people, investing in people, ultimately companies, especially companies in like the B2C space where we are, that are based on end users actually using and believing in your product. It's all about the people. And that extends to the people in your business. It's why we came here. We could have chosen to stay remote. Nowadays, most tech companies are remote, and they're going more and more remote to save money, to become more global, to expand. We spent probably more money than we should have to come here, to rent an office, to be in a physical place with one another, to hire local talent, to bring people in a room, to build a momentum, build a swell around people. And so I think doubling down on people ultimately is the path to success. Even if you can only afford less people in the short term, I'd rather have less great people in a room committed to trying to get something done that they all believe in, right? So find a strong why, double down on people, and just go for it.
Yeah, nice. Shane, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I would piggyback on that a little bit, especially when Mike talks about the why. And one of my favorite quotes of all time, I believe it's Nietzsche, don't quote me on that, is a man who has a strong why can bear any how. So that would be my advice. If you can orient yourself in the way that I describe it, is having a North Star. So something that you can always look at as a goal that you're striving toward, that you're moving always in that direction. Even if you go side to side, if you backtrack, you have that guiding light, that guiding North Star that's always going to be there. And the way that I look at it is, it's a pretty hackneyed way of looking at things, but like you only live once, right? So work is just it's a way to give back to your community that should be good for the community and good for yourself. And you can start baseline it yourself. Is this good for me? Is this good for my family? Is this good for my community? And with this goal that we have, we can work it all the way up to, is this good for humanity? So if you have a very strong why, and then you have people, for example, Mike, who also believe in the thing that you're doing, then if you have that why, you can bear anyhow. And it's just a matter of belief and action, right? So if you can forecast a future in your head of how you want things to be, like really envision that, have a solid goal, a solid orientation, and then just do it, right? Belief without action is just chance, for however you want to call it. But belief with action, you can really, really start to do something. And I think that's how we ended up where we are right now.
Wrap up with how the community can help. So how can we help? And then obviously, where do we go to find more information? Website, where do we get the app? Talk about where we go.
Reach out if you want to get involved. I mean, we're all over the internet. It's not hard to find us. I mean, you can go to mytiki.com, find all our socials, join our Discord community, but just reach out. I mean, we're looking for engineers, we're looking for interns, developers, investors, you name it, marketing professionals. We're looking for everything, right? Like we're building something very big, very fast. And so reach out if you believe in what we're doing. Even just reach out and say, keep going, right? Like just reach out. We're looking to get connected. We want to get involved in the community here. We want to just become part of this, and we want to build something amazing. So yeah, reach out.
We'll definitely keep going. No doubt about that. Love what you're doing. Greatly appreciate you guys being a part of the show. So Mike, Shane, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us. It is greatly appreciated.